بالحب تلقاك البدور ضيف الأماني والسرور فيك العطايا والأجور يا مرحبا يا مرحبا زين الشهور.
So this is everyone's a hypocrite. Hands up here who went to the last talk? Okay, good. And everyone who didn't feel a sense of deep shame and remorse and regret, yeah? So, just very quickly, we went through the objectives of these student-led talks last time. So, I know this is a bit lazy, but if you really want to know what the objectives are with regards to the audience for these student-led talks, go check out our YouTube video about boys and girls can be friends. And you'll find out all the information there, yeah? Just some quick extra objectives. Obviously, I'd like to thank all of our presenters, yeah? So you've seen Farhan, Amna, for really working out, flat out for these presentations. MashaAllah, they've done an excellent job, and I'm sure it'll come through in their presentations. So some objectives for our presenters. Number one is that they gain research skills. So they're not researching controversial areas, but through this entire process, our presenters are able to research Islam effectively. They're able to go through the right sources. They're able to filter out what isn't qualified knowledge and what is. And so I hope all of you presenters, and the ones from last time, will agree that now you feel far more comfortable going to the right sources when you want to find out more about Islam. Yeah? The second thing is obviously being able to present that information to your peers or to your friends. Now, not all of us are going to be doing presentations to our friends. In fact, most of us are probably never going to do an Islamic presentation. I hope we do, but most of us won't. But all of us give advice to our friends. Yeah? All of us have friends who say one thing or another, and we end up giving advice to them. And so the breakdown of these presentations is to teach our presenters, and hopefully our audience as well, what's the best way to give advice? Do you just jump in straight away with your opinion? Or do you go through it logically? Do you go through it thoughtfully and effectively? And so hopefully our presenters, and hopefully the audience as well, will get a better understanding of how exactly to give advice, whether it's your friends or your family members, whoever it is. Yeah? So those are some very short, brief objectives for our presenters. Now this talk, everyone's a hypocrite. It's just a statement, yeah? And we're going to explore this statement for the remainder of these presentations. Just a segue into it, a small anecdote, and then I'll pass it on to you, Yassine, I promise. Yeah, I'm not going to take another 15 minutes. So, a nice segue into this conversation is an incident that my dad told me about, which is a conversation that he had with one of his peers. I think he was a consultant endocrinologist. And basically, this consultant endocrinologist, he was Caucasian, he was not Muslim. But he came to my dad, and he said that really, non-Muslims and Muslims were not that different. Yeah? And he meant that in a specific way. Because he said that non-Muslims, they drink alcohol. And I know so many Muslims that drink alcohol. So for those of us who think, oh yeah, other people, they don't know about our, the dirty laundry that we have, guess again. They know everything about what we're doing. Yeah? And if we try and cover it for them, we're just fooling ourselves. So he said that non-Muslims, they drink alcohol. Muslims drink alcohol. Non-Muslims have girlfriends, they have mistresses, they have affairs. I know plenty of Muslims who have girlfriends, boyfriends, they have affairs, and so on. Yeah? So my point is that we're not that different. So I don't know why Muslims pretend like they are that different. And so my dad replied back that I completely agree with you. With regards to actions, it can seem that there's not that much difference between non-Muslims and Muslims. Oftentimes we both do things that we shouldn't be doing. But the difference is that when a Muslim does it, at least most of us, we try to do it behind a curtain. We try to do it behind closed doors. Because there is that guilt there, that what I'm doing is wrong. Fine, I'm doing it, but I shouldn't be doing it. And so the person who's drinking alcohol, or the person who's indulged in corruption, yeah, as you know, Muslims are supposedly experts in that, you know, as we can see in our own countries back home. Fine, they're doing that. You know, we're not going to debate about that. But deep down inside, and all of us can agree here in the audience, yeah, they feel the pinch of it. They feel the pain of it. And so long as that pain is there, and so long as we don't change the standards, because Islam is very clear about that, then there's hope for this person to rectify what they were doing. The solution for people outside of the Islamic faith is, all of us are hypocrites, so let's get at the standards all together. Let's just say it's okay to drink alcohol. Why are we pretending to be different? Islam says, here are the standards, now strive towards it to the best of your ability. And so the person who's drinking alcohol, he feels the pain of it, fine. 10, 20 years later, 30 years later, so long as that pain is there, so long as he doesn't try to change the concept of the fact that alcohol and intoxicants in general are forbidden within Islam, there's hope for him to turn things around. And the same goes for someone who is promiscuous and so on. There's always that hope for them to turn things around. The door is always open, so long as the yardstick doesn't change. And on that note, some food for thought for all of you. I'd like to pass it on to Yassine.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you. It's good to see so many of you here today. How are you today?
Alhamdulillah, good.
Very good, excellent. Okay. So, before we start, I'd just like to mention 3 points. Can I have that, please? I'd like to mention 3 points before we start. Number one, we're nothing special. We're no one special. Okay, fine, maybe a bit special. No joke. We haven't got any special scholar qualifications or anything. We've just been asked to give this talk, and here we are giving this talk. Myself. What's your name again? Oh yeah, Farhan. No. Okay, great. Number two, we'll be mentioning many qualities of hypocrite as we go along, especially when we get to the practical examples and stuff. So I don't want anyone to think, oh, you know what, I see these qualities in this person exactly. Oh my God, if they were here, you know, this is the person. Don't think that. Look at the qualities and look inside yourself. Do I have any of these qualities? And lastly, if you disagree with any of our points that we make, or if you have any special points that you'd like to make, feel free to bring it up at the end. We'll be happy to hear it. And you'll be happy to know there's no break for fundraising, so you can keep your hands down, keep your money in your pockets. This is only about hypocrites stuff. Okay? So just to start by painting the picture. Oh, you like this? Okay, good. So, you know, when we talk about hypocrites and stuff, the Western definition of hypocrisy is, you know, when you say something and you do the opposite. That is kind of the Oxford Dictionary definition of hypocrisy. But in Islam, when we're talking about hypocrisy, and we think there are kind of two extremes that are existent. And not to say that people fall into one extreme or the other. We're probably mostly in the middle, and maybe some people may veer towards one or the other. Okay? So, extremes. First extreme is a person who says, you know, everyone's a hypocrite, no one's perfect. Why should we pretend, or why should we bother to strive for perfection or be pious? And rather than, I know we can't really quantify Iman or faith, but say they had 20% of faith, rather than work up towards 40%, 60%, etc., they think, you know what, 0%. And Shaitan likes to work this way. Shaitan likes to work backwards. So say there's girl who wears hijab, and for example, she takes cocaine or something. Shaitan doesn't really want you to start taking cocaine. Shaitan will make you think, you know what, I'm being a hypocrite. I'm going to take hijab off. 0%. Okay? So think about any instances in your life when, well, not taking cocaine, but any kind of disparity in that kind of sense. And Farhan will talk about certain words that we looked into. I think disparity may be one of them. Sorry for giving it away. Second extreme is a person who thinks hypocrisy exists in others, but not in myself. Okay? So, for example, they're probably praying 5 times a day, they find it easy and whatnot, but they throw litter on the ground. They're perfectly fine, you know, denouncing all these dictators around the world, but when they get home, they are dictators in their own households. You know, probably, yeah, we get that. And even, you know, they even probably can speak out against racism and whatnot. You know, we're all equal, everything. But when it comes to marriage and their son or daughter wants to marry someone from a different race, a whole different story happens. And on that note, I think I'll hand it over to Farhan now, who's going to give us the Islamic definition of hypocrisy and maybe some historical background, maybe? How does that sound?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
My name is Farhan. I'm in my 4th year of medicine here. So I'm just concluding on from what Yasin was talking about. I want to talk to you a bit more about what are the Islamic perspective on hypocrisy, what are the Islamic definitions of hypocrisy, and what does Islam have to say about hypocrisy. Yasin mentioned the definition, the kind of Oxford definition of hypocrisy is somebody who kind of doesn't practice what they preach. And if we look at the Islamic definition doesn't, it's not so different from this. It's not so different. And as we can all see, Islam always charters a middle path. We should always choose the middle path. We should never veer towards one extreme. Always choose the middle path. And it's important to realise that the topic of today's talk, hypocrisy, hypocrisy is a disease, okay? It's mentioned by many scholars and writings, it is referred to as a disease. But more specifically, hypocrisy is a disease of the heart. Okay, and just like any diseases that we learn about, it has definitions, it has pathology, okay? It has signs and symptoms, it has causes, it has treatment, and it has prognosis. So inshallah, for the rest of this presentation, we will be talking about hypocrisy in that kind of PBL format, inshallah. So just before we kind of set off on researching this, we wanted to find out, well, if we could find one word that we really thought could sum up the Islamic definition of hypocrisy, one word that kind of sum up what is a hypocrite, who is a hypocrite, what would that word be? And we went on this kind of quest, as you may think, or just to try and come up and research one specific word. And I'm just going to throw a few buzzwords out at you, which came to mind when we were thinking of it. So discrepancy, so something different between what you say and what you do. Somebody whose actions do not mirror their words. Or how about disparity? So the way you behave around different people, might be different groups on campus, it might be the way you behave with your friends, the way you behave with your family. Is there some kind of discrepancy with the way that people behave? Dishonesty, we all know what dishonesty is. Doing things that you know morally are not right, or you've got a conscience and you know what's right and what's wrong. So is dishonesty, is that what hypocrisy is? Or is it inconsistency? Inconsistency in your actions and your beliefs. So the thing that you do every single day, it contradicts your very fundamental beliefs that you claim to hold. Or insincerity, we thought this was quite an important word. Is it someone who's basically not doing things for the right reasons? Someone who is basically doing things for praise. All their actions are not for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, therefore something else. Is that it? And so what we did is we thought of all these words, but none of these words we thought were really hitting the nail on the head. And we did a bit more research, and we found a hadith. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in Sahih al-Bukhari, one of the worst people is a double-faced man, okay? Who comes to one group with one face and another group with a totally different face. And I think it's important for us to just kind of reflect on this. one of the worst type of people that the Prophet ﷺ is explaining is the type of person who has two faces, the type of person who pretends to be two different people. So if you've got two warring kind of tribes or two groups of people who are odds end with each other, they might even be at war with each other. This hypocrite, this guy, he will come up to one group and he will praise them, he'll say nice things to them, he'll say everything that they want to hear in order to get their favour, and it will all work to his advantage. And the next day he'll go straight to the other group and he will say the exact opposite, and he will backtrack all of his words, and now he will slander the other group, the group he was with the previous day. And this is a prime example of somebody who is a hypocrite, somebody who is two-faced, somebody whose their words don't match their actions don't match their words. They're inconsistent, they're dishonest, they're insincere in their actions. And so we thought two-faced was what was really hitting the nail on the head. So this is what we came up with. We thought, being a hypocrite, we thought the definition, somebody who's two-faced, somebody who adopts more than one persona or more than one kind of character for different people. They adapt themselves to the different people that they may be around. Whoever those people might be, they want to show a different face so that they can be accepted by those people, so that they can get praised by those people, and it can serve their immediate interests. So that is what, this is a central theme, being two-faced, that we're going to really stick to throughout the rest of this talk. And inshallah, we're going to come back to this recurring theme. So just a bit more about being two-faced. So it goes beyond showing off arrogance. Hypocrisy, it's when you decide to be two-faced. You might have multiple faces, okay? So typically, let's think about us. What's relevant to us as kind of young Muslims living in the West in university, okay? You might have hypocrisy having a multitude of faces, okay? So it doesn't have to stop at two faces. It could be three faces, it could be four faces, it could be five, it could be any number of faces. All of a sudden you've got all these different personas. So you could be one face when you're praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, another face when you're with the kind of religious Muslims on campus, another face when you're with your family at home, another face when you're with your PBL group, another face when you're with your firm buddies. You might have a face for when you're with the ISOC, a face for PACSOC, a face for BLAST. The list goes on, and all of a sudden this person goes from having one face to have a multitude of different faces, and they're always adapting their core beliefs or their values, always adapting and tweaking it to suit those who are around them, those people that surround them, so that it can suit their own interests, and they can get praised for that. Okay, so that's being two-faced. And what are the actual proper Islamic rulings on hypocrisy? What are the actual Islamic rulings? So I'm just going to step back and talk to you a bit more about what Islamic definitions actually have to say about. There are two kind of broad kind of categories that are recognised as hypocrisy. The first one is called an-nifaq al-akbar, and that basically means, nifaq means hypocrisy, akbar means great, so greater hypocrisy. Okay, but for the purposes of this talk, I'm going to call it absolute hypocrisy. Okay. That's the first type, okay? The second type of hypocrisy is something called an-nifaq al-asghar, or lesser hypocrisy. But for the purposes of this talk, I'm not going to refer to it as that. We've coined our own word for this, and that is our hypocrisy. Okay, so from now on, I'm going to talk about these two types of hypocrisy: absolute hypocrisy and our hypocrisy. Okay, and I'm just going to go into a bit more detail about these now, inshallah. So what is absolute hypocrisy? What is this thing? Absolute hypocrisy is when somebody outwardly professes to believe in Islam. They say, they say, La ilaha illallah wa Muhammadur Rasulullah. They say they believe in the Quran, they believe in the angels, they believe in the messengers. But inwardly, they don't believe it. Inwardly, they hate Islam. Okay, so this is someone who's basically putting on a face. Okay, this guy is two-faced because he's saying he's a Muslim, but in his heart he has no love for Islam. This type of hypocrisy is equal to apostasy. For those of you who don't know what apostasy means, it means someone who kind of betrays their religious beliefs, someone who goes back on their religious beliefs. You know, they used to be a part of a religion, but now they've gone back on it and they've completely abandoned it. It's really important to remember here that this label of absolute hypocrisy, not myself or not a single person in this room has the right to label that onto anybody else, okay? This label of being an absolute hypocrite, it can only be ascribed by a fully qualified judge, scholar in an Islamic state. And this person must be fully qualified in Islamic Sharia law. And that is the only condition in which somebody can, and it's like there's not many of these people around there. I'm sure none of us in this room can meet that criteria. So that's a really point to emphasize, that absolute hypocrisy, where you basically say that you're Muslim, but you don't really believe in Islam. No one has the right to go around saying who they think that is. And you might be thinking, well, why is he talking about this? I mean, who would do that? Well, this was actually a big, big problem for the early Muslims in Medina. They faced this every single day, and there was this group of people in Medina called the Hypocrites, and they made life for the Muslims really, really, basically kind of live in hell. Basically, they did everything they could to try and betray the Muslims, to try and kind of just to make things as difficult as possible for them. And there was this one particular hypocrite, his name was Abdullah ibn Ubay, and trying to cut a long story short, he had a lot of contempt and a lot of jealousy in his heart for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because this guy was on the verge of becoming the mayor of Medina, literally. He was on the verge of becoming leader of Medina. But that didn't happen, because as we all know, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he came along, and those of the Arabs in Medina converted to Al-Islam. And this guy, he went out of his way to make things as difficult as possible for the early Muslims. You know, he betrayed their trusts. He aided the enemies of the Muslims. On the Battle of Uhud, him and 300 people abandoned the Muslims. He slandered the wives of the prophets. You name it. He did absolutely everything he could think of to try and make life for the Muslims in Makkah as difficult as possible. And this was not a secret. Everybody knew this. Everybody knew that this guy was a hypocrite. But when it comes to Friday prayers, he would say, La ilaha illallah, and he would say, "O Prophet, everything you say is the truth." So he would basically have another face to say that he's a Muslim. So he was the ultimate two-faced. If you want to think of the ultimate absolute hypocrite, think of Abdullah ibn Ubay. And it's important to remember here that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in the Quran that this kind of absolute hypocrite, they will be given the lowest depth in hellfire. The lowest depth of hellfire is reserved for these types of hypocrites, and hell will take refuge from them for their sins. Hell will take refuge from them for their sins. So this type of hypocrisy is the most hated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I just wanted to finish this slide by saying that this is, inshallah, this shouldn't be a big problem for all of us. This is not a problem for us in this room, or Muslims living in this country, or for that matter, we don't believe that this is the real problem of hypocrisy. So for the rest of this talk, we're not going to talk about this hypocrisy, but I just wanted to present it to you. And, I just wanted to present it to you, and so now you're all aware of it. I'm going to talk about this other type of hypocrisy, and this is where I want you guys to really listen, okay? Because this type of hypocrisy, which we've coined our hypocrisy, this is relevant to every single person in this room, myself included, okay? This is very relevant to all of us, okay? So what is this type of hypocrisy? This is where somebody, they believe in Islam, they say La ilaha illallah wa Muhammadur Rasulullah, they might pray 5 times a day, they might read the Quran, so they truly are a believer. However, their actions do not mirror their words or reflect their beliefs. Actions do not mirror their words or reflect their beliefs. And this is basically taking that two-faced concept to a different level, because now it's like, it's not so blatantly obvious as the absolute hypocrite, okay? This is being two-faced in your actions and in your character. And for someone to be this type of hypocrite, you have to possess one or more of certain traits. These traits, I'm going to talk about them a bit later when I talk about the signs and symptoms of a hypocrite. I just wanted to mention hadith by Hudayfa radiyallahu anhu, who said, "A heart filled with hypocrisy and faith." So I put it into context. He's talking about different types of hearts, okay? So the heart of the believer, the heart of the disbeliever, the heart of the absolute hypocrite, and the heart of somebody who has hypocrisy and faith in his heart, okay? So a heart filled with hypocrisy and faith. Its faith is like a tree supplied with good water, but its hypocrisy is like an ulcer filled with pus and blood. Whichever is nurtured will win. And that is really vivid imagery, and I've got a nice picture of a tree up there. I didn't want to put a picture of an ulcer, so I'm sorry if you guys wanted to see that on the next slide, but you're not going to get it. It's quite vivid imagery here, which is it's a good idea to just take a minute and reflect. And what does this actually mean? It actually means that each and every single one of us, in our hearts, and remember I mentioned earlier, hypocrisy is a disease of the heart. There is the potential to have iman, to have faith, and to have hypocrisy side by side, and they could be at loggerheads with one another. And to determine who wins, whether hypocrisy wins or whether iman wins, is basically what you fuel your heart with. What do you give your heart? Okay, and we're going to touch upon this a bit later on in the talk. Yassine is going to talk about things we can do to avoid hypocrisy, and I'm going to talk to you in a second about the signs and symptoms of hypocrisy, and they all contribute to the kind of developing the also, inshallah. So now, inshallah, I think we're going to take a break from Maghrib, and we'll be back. Alright, we're going to start again, inshallah. So I'm going to jump straight back into it, and before I do that, so a very brief recap what I just talked about. I talked to you about the Islamic definitions of hypocrisy. I said that we as a group, we felt that in order to describe hypocrisy, we think it's the act of being two-faced, the characteristic of being two-faced. And when we looked at the Islamic definitions, we found there were two types of hypocrisy. The absolute major hypocrisy, the guy who says he's a Muslim but really he's not, and that's like a really, really bad sin, and Allah has reserved the lowest depth of hellfire for them. And then the second type of hypocrisy, which is the lesser hypocrisy, but it's still quite significant. We've termed that our hypocrisy, and that's the hypocrisy that I said that every single one of us in this room needs to be aware about ourselves, and we all need to fear this type of hypocrisy. So that's where I kind of left off with. And I said to you, I was going to explain to you some signs and symptoms of this hypocrisy. So inshallah, that's what I'm going to do right now. So signs and symptoms of our hypocrisy, okay? This is the type of hypocrisy that we should fear in ourselves. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained in a hadith there are 4 characteristics. Whoever has all of them is a complete hypocrite. And whoever has some of them has some element of hypocrisy unless he gives it up. Okay, unless he gives it up. So what this is basically saying is that if you have any of these characteristics, you have some element of hypocrisy unless you give it up. Okay, so what's the first characteristic? When he speaks, he lies. Okay, when he speaks, he lies. And I'm sure we can all relate this to our day-to-day lives. We can, when our interactions with our families, with our friends, with our lecturers, things like that. Why do people lie? We tell lies to impress, we might want to impress somebody, we might be scared, so we tell a lie. Oh, I'm sorry I didn't do my homework, you know, I was really stressed out yesterday, but in fact you were just really lazy. People tell lies because they want praise, they want someone to think, oh, that's amazing, you did that, mashallah, bro, you ran the marathon. No, I didn't either, you know. Maybe somebody wouldn't tell such a bad but the most important thing is, when you lie and it becomes habitual, somebody who's got no problems with lying, somebody for them, a white lie here and there, it's fine. It doesn't matter, I'll just kind of tell a little white lie, it's not too big. Somebody who persistently lying and they don't feel bad about it, they have no shame in their lies, for them it's not a big deal and they become used to it. This is a major sign of somebody who could potentially be a hypocrite. Somebody who thinks it's absolutely fine to keep lying and you don't make a big issue out of it. Okay? And every time hypocrisy is mentioned in the Quran, and it's a recurring theme in the Quran, Allah mentions lying. Every time hypocrisy is mentioned in the Quran, the word lying is always mentioned, and it always goes hand in hand. And that's something to remember. When he makes an agreement, he violates it. Okay, this is the second characteristic that the Prophet ﷺ explains. So what are these agreements, or trusts, some people like to call them? So it could be something as basic as, you know, you're coming to university at Barts, you're coming here to study medicine or dentistry because, inshallah, you want to better yourself and you want to become a dentist or you want to become a doctor and contribute to society. But in a way, that's a kind of a trust, because in return, you are expected to do some basic amount of work. You are expected to put some basic level of effort into this course so that you can get something out of it, and then ultimately you can privilege yourself and you can benefit society. Okay, that's a kind of trust. Other types of trust, if you lend money to a friend and you expect them to pay it back, or the trust that exists between a student and a teacher. And a big sign of somebody who's a hypocrite is somebody who doesn't take these trusts seriously. Somebody who thinks, oh, it doesn't matter, he lent me like £5, whatever, I won't pay it back. That's not big enough. Who cares? Or somebody who just doesn't feel the urge to fulfill their obligations. If they've said to someone that they will do something, they make an agreement, they feel that actually, do you know what, I can't really be asked. And then this comes on to the third characteristic of a hypocrite, which is when he makes a promise, he breaks it. Okay, when he makes a promise, he breaks that promise. So this can come in two types. One type, so you make a promise and then you have absolutely no intention of keeping it. So that, yeah, inshallah, bro, I will see you there tomorrow at 6 p.m. You know, but in actual fact, you want to go home and watch EastEnders, and you don't really want to see him anyway. So that is making a promise with no intention of keeping it. Or it could be making a promise, but then actually later you go back and you think, actually I can't be asked, and then he goes on to break the promise. So you took the promise lightly, okay? So the guy went out, he initially went out of his way to say, yes, inshallah, I will do this for you, I promise I will do this for you, and then actually he's like, no, I can't be asked, okay? And he could even go as far to deny the promise and say, actually, I don't remember saying that to you, I never said this to you, when did I say that? Okay, so breaking promises. And then the last one from this hadith is when he quarrels, he resorts to insults. And this can be taken as, you know, the guy who's very argumentative, the guy who's got a very short fuse, the guy whose temper is, everyone's scared of him, okay? Everyone thinks, whoa, you know, this guy is very argumentative. He's basically like an explosion waiting to happen, okay? And he will argue over anything, okay? And he'll get angry over anything, and he'll instantly resort to insults, swear words, okay? It could be from major issues, so debating major kind of Islamic issues, or it could be like tiny little things like, oh, you know, what's better, Android or iPhone or, you know, Mac or, you know, Microsoft, you know, even little things like that. This guy, he's got a very short fuse and he can blow up. This is a sign of a hypocrite, somebody who basically explodes very quickly, has got a short temper, and everyone's always tiptoeing around them. And another thing to add to this point is if you give such a person a piece of advice that you think will genuinely benefit them, they will take it as an insult. They will immediately be on the defensive. They'll be like, oh, why are you saying that to me? I mean, what's brought you to say this? I mean, why are you saying that to me? Being defensive, you know, kind of taking genuine advice as an insult. That is a big sign of being a hypocrite. And I think it's really important for all of us in this room to just think, do I possess any of these qualities, even if it's in the tiniest of a fraction? And please, like Yassine said, don't think, oh, I know this brother, or I know this sister, she's just like this, she has such a short fuse. Don't look at other people, only look at yourself, because something I forgot to mention earlier is this type of hypocrisy, this our hypocrisy, it can only be self-diagnosed. You can only apply this label to yourself. Nobody can apply it to you, but you have to look into yourself and see if you can apply this label to yourself, okay? And it has been reported on this hadith that if somebody possesses one of these characteristics, they have a share of hypocrisy. If somebody possesses two of these characteristics, then they have a larger share of hypocrisy. But if somebody possesses all four of these characteristics, and this is the bombshell, if somebody possesses all four of these characteristics, he is equal to an absolute hypocrite. The type of hypocrite that I was talking to you about earlier, the type of person who says they're a Muslim, but inside they hate Islam. Okay, so it has been narrated that if you possess all four of these characteristics, you are equal to an absolute hypocrite. And I think that's a real slap in the face for all of us, myself included, to just think about our actions and our daily lives, inshallah. So these are just 4 signs and symptoms of hypocrisy that I've got from the hadith. I'm going to mention 2 more to you, and these are from Quran. So the first one. Okay, so the first one. So this is from the Quran. Being lazy in salah. And that they come not to a salah except in a lazy state. And this is in Surah At-Tawbah, okay? And then they come not to salah except in a lazy state. What does this actually mean? So this type of person, this guy, to him, he comes to the prayer lazily. To him, he experiences much discomfort and he experiences much inconvenience. To him, praying is just like, oh my God, why do I have to do this for? Okay? And to him it causes discomfort. So he might be like a guy who's like a normal guy. He doesn't really pray. He doesn't really do these kind of things. And then he's just like, he might be in the company of some people who do pray, okay? And then they are like, okay, let's all get together and pray now. And the first thing that thought in his head is like, I can't be bothered. Oh, this is such a burden. Oh, do I have to make wudu? Do I have to take my socks off? And to him, the first reaction to him is, this is an inconvenience. This is just, and it's really down to laziness. Okay, and that is the first one. So that is one of the other signs of hypocrisy. Another sign of hypocrisy is direct spending in the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, and they do not spend except while they are unwilling. So somebody who gives money in charity, so they can give any kind of charity, but they don't actually mean to give that money to charity. They have no intention of that money going to a charity or going to the mosque or going for the sake of Allah. They just think, oh, I have to pay this because everyone has to see that I'm giving money to charity because, otherwise everyone's going to point fingers at me and be like, oh, no. And this is where the intentions are not in the right place. And it could be zakat, it could be sadaqah, and this kind of hypocrite, they have shaitan whispering in their ear, saying to them, don't give any money to charity, don't give your zakah this year, you have to pay the rent, you have to pay the bills, you still need to pay off that new car you bought, and all these little whispers will come saying to you, oh, you can't pay this money to charity. So these are just a few more signs of hypocrisy that I thought, and I wanted to relate them all back to the idea that we had of this being two-faced, not showing your true kind of personality, always kind of hiding who you truly are, having two different faces. So in terms of lying, lying to somebody could be seen as putting on a face. Okay, not fulfilling a promise to somebody, it could be seen as putting on a face because you're actually kind of hiding your true intention, which is I actually have no promise, no intention of keeping the promise. Things like laziness in salah. So okay, you get up and you pray with the rest of the brothers, and you pray with the rest of the sisters, but not because you want to, but because you just feel like you have to because you're in that environment. So you put on this face, you just pretend. Inshallah, and inshallah, that's everything that I have to say about the signs and symptoms of hypocrisy. I'm now going to hand over to Yassine, and he's going to talk a bit more about the causes and the treatment.
Okay, thank you very much, Rahman. Just, he mentioned he, his, him, that guy a lot. It applies to you girls as well. Just so etiology, yes, it's a real word, but what basically means what's the cause of hypocrisy? And we're thinking, is it because of a lack of guilt or shame when it comes to sins? Or is it because they think there's some sort of incentive when they're doing something good, or when they're acting certain ways with different people? They have something to gain from it, rather than doing everything for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Shaykh Abdurrahman Musa told us that the root cause of being two-faced, that people don't realise that Allah is the only one worthy of doing anything. And the only treatment, the only saviour for hypocrisy is sincerity. Does anyone know the Arabic word for sincerity? It's a surah in the Quran. Sorry? Ikhlas. Yeah, ikhlas, you're right. Wow, so religious. So there's a Arabic in the translation of Surah Al-Ikhlas, one of the short surahs. But it's interesting, when you look at the surah, there's no mention of sincerity at all. There's no mention of doing any good. There's no mention of even people or humanity or anything. But yet, this surah is called the sincerity. So what is the link between these words and sincerity? I'll tell you. So basically, when we're at med school or dental school, 5 or 6 years, we have an objective, which is to get a degree and impress the future in-laws. Yes, okay. So everything we do basically has an objective. So even if you go to work, you have a job, and you do a good job, and your boss says, well done, and whatnot, pats you on the back, maybe employee of the month if you're lucky. With this, the objective is Allah Himself, subhanahu wa ta'ala, as you can see, the eternal refuge. So if you do good, the result of your sincerity is Himself. And that is the main goal of this. So even when you say subhanallah, alhamdulillah, la ilaha illallah, you're being elevated, and that's for eternity. It's not you have to work again to try and impress your boss. So this is what Surah Al-Ikhlas is about. It's about giving your actions the power of eternity. Okay? But it's all well and good, me telling you, okay, we need to be more sincere. You go home, you think, okay, I need to be more sincere. We came up with kind of 5 solutions, if you want. If you have any more, feel free to add at the end. But this is the first of the 5. Learn about the hereafter, learn about paradise, learn about hellfire, learn about life in the grave, learn about the day of judgment. You know that hellfire is so hot that it's actually pitch black. There's a bridge that leads to paradise. It's as thin as a hair and as sharp as a blade. And everyone has to cross that, and beneath this hellfire is pitch black. And the only thing that will get you across is your iman. And people with the best iman will have their way lit, and they can just zoom across, they're in paradise. Some others find it difficult, some people fall in. And the thing with paradise and hellfire is that it's eternal. We don't really grasp the concept of eternity. So hellfire isn't like, you just touch it and you go. Oh, thanks. So the concept of eternity is forever. So there's an ayah that says, basically, as soon as your skin is burnt off, Allah will replace your skin just so you feel punishment. That isn't going to stop anytime soon. And same with paradise. Imagine the best day you've had. So it's probably like a summer holiday one day, with your friends, you've chilled. You probably had ice cream because that makes everything better. And then you've gone home, you've chilled, you've probably eaten a hot dog or something. You feel really good about yourself. There's a nice breeze coming through the window. It's a perfect day. That is what... Obviously, paradise isn't like that. Paradise is infinitely better, and the best thing is that it's eternal. So, basically, there are loads of talks out there talking about paradise and hellfire. And we can learn about it. Oops. And this is just a snippet. There are loads of ayahs talking about paradise and hellfire. This is just a snippet from Surah Qaf. It basically says, hellfire, have you been filled? And we say, and it says, Had min mazid. Is there any more? Are there any more people to fill me? And there is Allah's mercy, basically. Okay, so that's the first solution. Second, remember Allah. I don't just mean remember Him. I mean do actively do dhikr. Say Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah. And there's a hadith which is class as Sahih by Al-Albani. He says, when you say Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, you're planting a seed in paradise, and that seed will become a tree in paradise. Every time, just say Subhanallah now. That's just one tree. That's another tree. And these trees aren't just your standard tree, Whitechapel or whatever, Hyde Park. Trees in paradise, that the shadow of which a fastest horseman has to travel for, I think, 400 years or so just to get across that. SubhanAllah. And say Allahumma salli ala Muhammad and stuff. That's one of the greatest things you can say. And you get reward for saying it. Angels pray for you 10 times over. Anyway, another thing is daily prayers. And really to stay within the time. You can't really imagine someone who does a lot of bad things and pray at the same time. It says in the Quran that prayer keeps you away from sin. So imagine, a guy going out and whatnot, and then he says, oh no, wait, I need to pray Isha. It doesn't really happen. So just bear that in mind. Or girl, sorry. Number 4, keep the right company. There's a hadith that says, Al-mar'u ala din khalilih. Basically means a person is on the religion or the path of his friend. Keeping the right company is extremely important. There are loads of hadiths talking about, the perfume salesman and the blacksmith and whatnot. I can go on forever. But people who remind you of doing good and everything it's a good idea to hang around them. Because, and I've found personally, when you hang around someone too much, you even end up laughing like them. Isn't it? I don't know. And it's really sad if your friend is... I'm joking. His laugh's a good laugh. Alright. And lastly, response to sin. And I can go on for this for ages, replace a sin with a good deed and it'll wipe it out. It's really just bearing in mind, it's good bearing in mind that don't despair in the mercy of Allah. And there are loads of stories and hadiths about how, the man who killed 99 people, and there's the story. You can ask me at the end if you want. Repent for your sin because the doors of repentance are always open, and try not to do it again and whatnot. That's all I had for that point, I think, but we'll talk about it later. So prognosis. So there are two kind of outcomes, and this is another bombshell. I know a lot of bombshells sitting in Whitechapel at the moment, but feeling like a hypocrite, and believe it or not, feeling like a hypocrite is a very good thing. Okay, it's actually a sign of faith. Abdullah bin Mas'ud says the greatest sign of a hypocrite is one who feels safe from hypocrisy. So we should never feel that, you know what, we're on the right track, whatnot. Just keep going. Always feel like a hypocrite, and you always strive to do better. Okay. And as we'll see in the case studies, like some of the biggest companions always felt like they were hypocrites. So feeling like Abu Bakr, you know, there's hadith that says if you had the faith, the iman of the whole ummah, like the whole nation, from the beginning of Islam to the last Muslim, and you put that on one side of the scale, and you put the iman of Abu Bakr on the other side of the scale, that side will still tip over. Same with Umar, like there's a hadith that says when he's walking on the street, Shaitan actually crosses the road just to avoid Umar. These people still feared hypocrisy in themselves, and we'll get to that in a second. So feeling like a hypocrite should really kind of motivate us to remove the multiple faces from our life and only have one face. It's infinitely better to feel like a hypocrite and hold on to the 20% or so. Obviously we shouldn't give a value to your man, as I said, but hold on to that 20% and strive rather than just go for 0%. And then being an actual hypocrite. Farhan mentioned there'll be a dark al-asfali min an-nar, the lowest place in hellfire. And the Prophet ﷺ said, one who's two-faced on the Day of Judgment will be holding his intestines in his hands. So he'll be holding his insides, the insides that he was so desperate to kind of hide from people. And people would approach him and say, wait, you used to tell us to do good, you used to tell us to go to the circle, you used to tell us to fear Allah, you used to give loads of money for charity and and whatnot. You used to give a hypocrite talk, you never know, may Allah save us, but what happened to you, they ask. And his reply will be, I was telling you things that I didn't do myself. So with that, I'd like to bring Amna up, talk about some case studies from the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And by the way, there's a hadith, as Amna's coming up, I forgot to mention, when we talk about the prayers of the Prophet ﷺ, there's a hadith that says, someone asks, who is a miser, or who is a stingy person? And he says, the one who, when my name is mentioned, they don't say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, or they don't pray for me when my name is mentioned.
Assalamu alaikum. So we've looked through loads of hadiths, YouTube videos, articles, and the amount of information on hypocrisy has been massive. But what I want to do now is I just want to go through some examples which is going to help us to highlight some of the points that we've made in our presentation so far. So, as Farhan said, we're using the buzzword two-faced in this presentation. And a good place to start is by looking at the greatest man to ever exist, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it's a no-brainer really. The words two-faced, it can't even be used in the same sentence as him. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had one face, and it was this true image of perfection. They had the same face with everybody, whether it was family, whether it was friends, whether it was people they didn't know. And this, I just want to talk about other people, other figures in history, and I just want to make a point that I'm not comparing the two, but if you think about other people in modern history, like Martin Luther King, for example, he was a great leader, but he had, so to say, a lot of skeletons in the closet. But the Prophet ﷺ didn't. And whether they were a completely transparent person. And whether we read about his private life or his family life, the Prophet ﷺ, he exhibited the same levels of perfections and mannerisms in both. And even amongst those who were close to him, he used to act in the same way as he was to strangers, regardless of status, religion, race, gender, or wealth. And Salama, may Allah be pleased with her, one of the Prophet ﷺ's wives, used to say, "You were truthful, a messenger of Allah, upon hearing, "Best among you are those who are best to his wives." So this just shows that the Prophet ﷺ had one face, one that was perfect in every aspect, all of the time, whether it was at home to his wife or outside to the people, no matter who was watching, because essentially all of his actions he did for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not for the people. And his private moments are the ones that make us fall in love with him more and show us that his message was his mission, and his mission was demonstrated in his actions. And Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, said his character was the Quran. And who's saying this? That's his wife who is saying this. And who knows him better than his wife? Who knows his character better than his wife? He was completely transparent. And that's a stark contrast to people like many leaders today, who, even before they pass away, their dirty laundries aired on Daily Mail, by the popular media. But with our Prophet ﷺ, he's completely transparent. We knew there was nothing to hide. There was nothing hidden in the closet, so to speak. He was perfect in religion, and none of us could ever attain that same level. And even if we got to a fraction of the same level, we would be amazing people, because that's how high his level was. But the thing is that we should try and use his teachings, his way of life and his character as an example, to help us to become more transparent and to improve ourselves as people and to move away from hypocrisy as far as possible. And hypocrisy, it's not a new thing. It's always been around. It's not anything to do with us becoming worse people or moving further away from religion. It's existed for thousands and thousands of years. And it was even such an issue back in the time that even the companions used to fear hypocrisy for themselves. And we should stop and think about that for a second. Because the companions, they were amazing people in both their character and in their religion. They were the people who were the closest to the Prophet ﷺ and who he trusted. But even they feared hypocrisy for themselves. So we're gonna go through an example. So Hanzala, who I'll be pleased with him, who's one of the Prophet's scribes, one day he met Abu Bakr, and he was asked, "How are you?" And he said in reply, "Hanzala has become a hypocrite." He said that of himself. And Abu Bakr was astonished, and he said, "Subhanallah, what are you saying?" And he replied, "Well, when we are with the Messenger of Allah, he reminds us of the fire and the gardens of paradise. So much so that it's like it's in front of me at that moment. But when we're out of his presence and we go back to our daily lives, our children, our wives, our property, we forget everything else." And to that, Abu Bakr replied, he said, "By Allah, I find the same things happen to me." So he agreed. So they both went to the Prophet ﷺ, and they told him what they just admitted to themselves. And the Prophet ﷺ said, "By the one who holds my life in his hands, if you were to remain in the states you attain while you're in my company, the angels would embrace you in your beds and on the streets. But, O Hanzala, there is a time for this, and there is a time for that." And he repeated that 3 times. So the story that I've just mentioned there, it involves Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, who was one of the Prophet ﷺ's best friends. He was the first rightly guided caliph. He was the only person, other than the Prophet ﷺ's wife Khadija, who accepted Islam immediately. And he believed in the Prophet ﷺ from Islam's earliest beginnings. And he constantly remained by the Prophet ﷺ's side. And he had no reservations about spending any of his wealth for the sake of Islam or Muslims. So much so that he actually used to have he used to be from a wealthy, well-established family in Mecca. But when he passed away, he only had 600 dirhams left, because that was how much he had spent of his own wealth for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for the other Muslims, to protect them. So the companions recognised his superiority, but he always remained as a humble and a sincere person. And he was just an example of someone who was very dedicated towards the religion. And he was an amazing man, mashallah. So but the point I'm trying to make is he was an amazing man, mashallah, but he still feared hypocrisy for himself. And Hanzala and Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with both of them, were not the only companions of the Prophet ﷺ who feared hypocrisy. Ibn Abi Mulaika said, I encountered 30 companions of the Prophet ﷺ. Every one of them fears hypocrisy for himself. So all 30 of the companions feared hypocrisy for themselves. So the point that I wanted to make by saying that is that it's not a bad thing to fear hypocrisy for yourself. And maybe if you're not feeling like a hypocrite right now, you should be a bit worried, maybe. But what I mean is, if the companions can question themselves about hypocrisy, then we shouldn't feel ashamed to question ourselves about hypocrisy. Because, in fact, fearing hypocrisy is what helps us to become better in our religion and for us to become better people. And it makes us believers. And just to finish that off, Al-Hasan al-Basri used to say about hypocrisy, no one fears it but a believer, and no one feels safe from it but a hypocrite.
Just to add to that, you know, when they're going back to their homes and they don't feel religious as they were with the Prophet ﷺ, they're not as religious. It's probably our best day ever in Ramadan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like they were, you know, arguing and then they answer the phone and say, "Assalamu alaikum." It's none of that. Okay, they were perfect people. Well, not perfect, but they were really good people. But you know, we can't compare to that. So we're going to move on to practical examples now.
Okay. So just going to go through some practical examples, and these are examples that we've written ourselves, just to try and relate some of these points to you guys. Might find them realistic, might find them a little bit unrealistic. We'll see. Okay, so the first example that we're going to go through, no.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, it comes up. Sorry. Go on.
Okay. So the first example that we're going to go through is about Brother X. Okay. As you notice, I'm using names. Wasn't as creative as Adnan last time trying to find names that nobody had in the audience, so we're just going with Brother X. So he's been charity rep for the last 3 years. And he loves it, raising money, going to events which support the cause, meeting new people and peers, but most of all, he loves the praise. Okay. It's not that easy. Okay. So nowhere have I mentioned that he loves doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is just a monologue, but it's been said. So oh, Brother X, mashallah, another successful charity week. I can't believe we beat Kings. You've been amazing, mashallah. And this is exactly what Brother X wants to hear. So sure, the intention from the beginning when he first of all started doing charity week was for the sake of Allah. But over time, other priorities have sort of taken over, and it's become more about him trying to hide his status amongst his peers. Being able to try and know every brother, possibly sister in Barts, and the need to basically try and win against other universities, and maybe even striving for personal success. So trying to beat his record from last year, but for his own sake, to say that, well, he did better than he did last year. And I know this is it's a controversial example, I think, because I think we had quite a lot of debate as to whether we should include this example. But the reason why we decided to keep it in there was because I think the point of this example is not to say whether he's in the right or whether he's in the wrong, whether he's a hypocrite or whether he isn't. It's to make all of you lot think about, in terms of his actions, what do you think in your own head? If you're so yeah, so we're not saying whether he's right or wrong, but you need to think about, do you feel that he's got aspects of hypocrisy to his character or not? And if he does, what could he do to improve those things? Because it's important to remember that hypocrisy, it's not just related to how you behave towards other people. You can be a hypocrite in acts of worship as well, whether that's physical prayer, obligatory zakat, etc. And someone, they could perform all their prayers, they could fast, They could do all of that, but the difference is, whilst doing all of this, why is he doing it? Is he doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or is he doing it for another reason? Is he going to Jummah every Friday so the other guys within his clique group don't judge him? Is he just going for that sake, or is he going because he actually wants to go and pray Jummah, you know, for God? So and with these people, they can either, there's two ways. So they can either completely perform these acts and that to show off in front of other people, or they can do it like a bit of both. So they could do it kind of to show off, but then they've kind of got an aspect of trying to do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the same time. And I think there was a video, wasn't there, that we watched, and it was to do about like okay, I don't know whether you watched it. Did you
Which one?
Basically, it was quite a good video that Abid sent, and it was to do with when you've got intentions of doing something, and so let's just say, ideally you'd want to be 100%. Whatever you do, your intention should be for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But let's just say your intention was, okay, so I'm gonna go pray Jummah, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, 60%, 40% because the rest of my friends are going to be there and we're going to go for coffee afterwards, and yeah, I just want to have a general chat with them, etc. So there's like the 60-40 there, so people understand what I'm saying. But if you swapped it and you were like, well, I'm only going 40% for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm going 60% because, yeah, well, my friends are there, then are people seeing the difference between what I'm trying to say? Yeah. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's... Does anybody want to say about this example? Because you can't do it too, they don't got any opinions.
Basically, I have something unfortunate to mention about sincerity. There has to be two conditions for sincerity. The first one is that the intention must be for the sake of Allah, and the second is the overwhelming majority of the action has to be for the sake of Allah. So that's
that's what I was trying to say. So I'm just going to move on to the next example. So this example might be a bit confusing because we've got three sisters here. We've got X, Y, and Z. But I've been assured it does still make sense. I'll try and go slowly. So Sister X has just gotten off the phone to Sister Y, and she's just spent the last half hour comforting her. And because Sister Y she's been having some difficulty with another one of the sisters in the group, Sister Z. And as a result, there was an argument last week. Something about turning up to an event wearing the same hijab. Anyway, so Sister X, immediately after coming off the phone to Sister Y, she calls Sister Z and tells her, she's like, oh my god, she's so annoying. She's still going on about that hijab thing, you know. Like, she needs to get over it. And then Sister Z replies, is she still speaking about it? Like, what's her problem? Like, she's so annoying. And that conversation between Sister Z and Sister X ends. And later on during that evening, Sister X calls Sister Y, the original sister, back. And she tells her what Sister Z had said. She says, oh, she said about you were so annoying. Okay, it sounds ridiculously petty, this example that we've given. But the reality is, to similar situations, it's quite realistic. That does happen. And not just amongst the girls, the guys as well. I know girls are well known for gossiping, but guys do it as well. So the point of this example was just to say that when we're looking at hypocrisy within people, this does overlap slightly with what you spoke about, Farhan, when you were saying about being double-tongued and being double-faced. So in this, so what we're saying is that, so if he's double-tongued and double-faced, he praises one person in his presence, but behind his back he denounces him and he tries to actually cause him pain and harm. Or he befriends two enemies and he gains trust in both of those people, then he actually causes problems between those two. And the point of the example that I've given is that the worst part about this scenario is it's not just a simple case of gossiping, because I think everyone at some point has gossiped. But the point of this example is because both sisters Y and Z, they trust Sister X, which is the difference. So then they trust her for whatever reason. They think their impression of her is that she's a nice person, like she's been around for dinner, she knows their family, etc. And the fact that they trust her, they will believe what she says, and because they believe what she says, that's what's going to cause the animosity between the two other sisters. And Imam Muhammad Bakir says, how evil is the one who is a slanderer, a defamer. He expresses friendship with one face and enmity with the other. And although neither of the sisters is aware of the reality of Sister X, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees everything, knows your every intention. Nothing between your tiniest to largest actions goes amiss. So that's just beautiful.
Okay, we have a few more examples. We're running short for time, so I'm just going to whiz really quickly through them. So another Brother Z, we keep it anonymous. So Brother Z says, I can't fast during Ramadan because I don't pray. You know, what's the point of me fasting if I don't pray anyway? And this is, take for example, he might be a fresher, he started at university, he's moved out, he's away from his parents, and this is the first time that he can kind of do whatever he wants. And he basically says to himself, well, I'm at university, I can do what I want now. I never really pray, it's Ramadan now, should I fast? What do you guys think about that? Yes, just yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, why?
Because no one's perfect, so you should still try and do what you can.
Exactly. So we kind of came to the same conclusion that yes, he should still try. And this is a typical example of how Shaitan whispers in your ear and tries to bring you down, tries to make you descend, when really you should be aiming to ascend. So he shouldn't be saying, oh, because I don't pray, I shouldn't fast, or I shouldn't do anything, and I should just go and do whatever I want. He should say, okay, maybe I should get my prayers in order, maybe I should actually start fasting, so that one day, inshallah, one day I should start praying, get my prayers in order, so that when Ramadan comes, I can start fasting and my fast will be accepted. That is the correct mentality, that I should get my prayers in order so that my fast will be accepted. Just one more example. Brother N goes out clubbing with his friends, has a really good time, he comes home, he's kind of semi-practicing, so every now and then he might pray, but sometimes he might miss prayers. You know, he's kind of in the middle. He's not completely religious, but he's not completely a dropout. And now he thinks, oh, it's time to pray Fajr. But what's the point of praying? I've just spent like the last 5 hours in a hot and sweaty nightclub, surrounded by, you know, alcohol and naked girls and things like that. You know, should I really pray? I'll just be a hypocrite. I might as well just go to sleep. What do people think on that? What do you think? Should he now go and pray Fajr, or should he just go to sleep? Should pray Fajr. And why should he do that?
Because if you don't start somewhere, you can't finish. So Shaitan's telling him that, okay, you know, you've done so much bad, there's no point of even, like, as you mentioned right at the beginning, of even having that 20%.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't start with that 20%, you can't get to 30%.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, thank you very much, Jawad. So that's exactly what it is. So he shouldn't let Shaitan whisper to him. He should be looking upwards. He should get his prayers established regularly, so that inshallah he can keep away from things. So we're going to miss out the last case, and Yassine is going to do the conclusion.
I'll probably include it in I don't know. Anyway, so in conclusion, can I just, what are the qualities of a hypocrite? There are 6 we kind of mentioned today. Quickly, anyone? Not all of them, just say 1 or 2.
9.
Alright, when you speak live.
Laziness and salah.
Sorry?
Laziness and
salah. Good. Breaking promises. Is when they don't really want to spend money. Argumentative. I think that's one more. Sorry? Breaking trust or breaking agreements. Yeah. Okay, well done. And a couple more points are: it's okay to feel like a hypocrite. In fact, it's actually good to feel like a hypocrite, and just avoid being a hypocrite. So, any questions or any comments or anything? You sure?
Does anyone have any questions? Come on, guys. This is a conversation.
Come on, Tish or
Any questions at all?
Or just comments, anything.
So, if there's a guy, he's got a beard, he's being sincere.
Oh my dear.
It's a classic.
So let's do this last one, because I think...
it's important.
Okay, basically, let's quickly do it, because might as well. So Brother G actually behaved very differently around different people on campus. He says stuff for Allah, like bad things with like religious people. Yeah, with the football team, he uses bad language, and worst of all, he flirts with the netball and stuff for Allah. Yeah, in PBL, he keeps quiet, he hasn't really done the work, and there are sisters from MMD there and stuff. So he doesn't really want to speak about what he's done in the pub and whatnot. What do you guys think? What is there anything good that we can take from this? Anything good that he's kind of doing?
The fact that he feels ashamed of it.
Yeah, thank you. That's good. So he has some sort of shame or guilt, even though it's only towards certain people and whatnot. It's something to build on. Obviously, he shouldn't have multiple faces. Foul language isn't great either. And doing PBR work is essential to just keep cohesion in the group. 7-step process, yeah?
So I think it's important. Fact that, okay, so that's how he acts, and people will pick up on this kind of thing. But also the people that are outside won't judge. So we shouldn't judge people just because someone is religious, in fact, or someone who doesn't seem who's religious. You shouldn't judge and try and say, well, that person's like this, that person, because you don't know what's inside.
We mentioned it at the beginning, so look at these qualities and think, do I have any of these qualities? Rather than, oh, I know exactly the person in my PBR group.
I mean, with hijab as well, like we discussed before, whether the people say you're providing a bad example or not, I couldn't care less. I know it affects a person, I'm not discounting that, but when someone makes a decision, they have to realize, what is God actually telling me to do? Because God controls people's hearts. He will make those very hearts that were saying so-and-so was a bad example, and He will turn those hearts so that He will place the love of you in their hearts. So He's the one who's commanding us. He's the one who controls the hearts, everyone's hearts. Let me follow what He says. And if He says, hijab is an obligation, then regardless of what else I do, I should strive towards bettering myself, as Farhan said, but I shouldn't break the link. If I break the link, then there's less hope for me to become better. Someone who says, I'm doing dodgy stuff on the side, and I'm wearing the hijab, let me take my hijab off. Very rarely do they sort out the dodgy stuff. It just gets worse and worse and worse. Yeah? So keep the hijab, keep the link, and keep God first and foremost. The people will say one thing or another. They will talk. How many of us have experienced that, where people say one thing and then tomorrow they change their opinion, the day after it's another opinion. They will keep on changing their opinion. Let them do so. I'm not going to tie my heart to something that's that dynamic. I'm going to tie it to God who is everlasting. Yeah.
I think basically it comes back to the sincerity again. Whether you do or don't do something, it's not what you shouldn't be judging that based on what people think. You should be doing it or not doing it for the sake of Allah.
Yeah, I think I've been here about 5 years, yeah, and I've seen that if it comes down to the crux of the matter, very few of us actually truly understand that doing something only for God is the only worthy thing to do. Because let's take the charity example. You put hundreds of hours into charity week, yeah. I put hundreds of hours into charity week, yeah. We should rename this talk Yasseen's a hypocrite, yeah. But you put hundreds of hours in, yeah. And what do you get in return from people? Oh, well done, brother. MashaAllah. Yeah? And I'm not hating on the people. I'm just saying that's a really crap return, yeah, for all the effort I put into it. And because of that insincerity, I become a hypocrite. Yeah. So why don't I do it for God? As Yasseen mentioned, Surah Al-Ikhlas. If you do it for God, you're getting everlasting return. You're getting permanent return. You're getting the most beautiful, the most powerful return. So if we could understand that one point, which is that if you do it for Him, then that's the only person worthy of doing things for. Everyone else, you're getting shortchanged. To be fair. Should we wrap it up?
Can I have one more point? Sorry, just one point. I think in terms of sinning and doing wrong, I think key to remember as well that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Rahman Rahim, He's merciful. I mean, none of us are really going to go to heaven based on our deeds. It's all going to be based on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rahmah. So if we keep that in mind, the fact that we know that Allah is going to forgive us, whatever we do, as long as we repent, as long as we realise what we've done, then that's the important thing, and I think that can help us stray away from becoming hypocrites and maybe help us to like strive onto the right path even further. That's what I want to say.
Can I just add one final point to the hijab thing, which is that you have to realise that the people judging you, they're separate. That's them. To be honest, they shouldn't be judging you in the first place. Like the hadith paraphrasing again, you should give 100 excuses for your brother or sister before pointing a finger at them. So, you know, what they do, like Abi said, is regardless. As in, you're doing it for your Lord. So it doesn't matter that they judge you because that's them doing it. At the end of the day, there will always be a few of those people who, regardless of however good you are, they'll point fingers at you and say things. So, you know, they're not the question because they always exist. That's always part of the equation. So, yeah.
So may Allah save us all from hypocrisy, and we need to remember that Allah's merciful, and He's actually He's split His mercy into 100 parts, and only one part is sent to this world. To the degree that a mother deer would lift her leg just so she didn't trample a baby deer. Just the amount of love between the mother and child, there's only one of the 100 parts of Allah's mercy. Allah is saving for 99 parts for the day of judgment for us. So bear that in mind.